This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
Let's jump into some other news and notes, and this is a big story. Meltzer is going to report at the end of April that Sid Vicious is leaving WCW after Super Brawl to go to the WWF. He would write, Vicious signed a contract with WCW through September. The reason he was given such a big push on TV was because the company felt by his own signing of the contract, they had him through September. But if the company planned on using him for any program past September, they deserved no sympathy because it had brought the cart before the horse, so to speak.
Yep.
In this situation, the company had every right to program Vicious for a big summer program. As most of you know, when Vicious punctured his lung in November of '89 and was out of action until the following July, he received his $3,000 per week salary that had been agreed upon under his contract. The company wasn't this great benevolent organization for paying him while he was hurt. That was simply a provision of the contract. Presumably, he was injured on the job, and that being the case, he deserved the money. I'm not saying Vicious owes any loyalty to WCW because of an argument could be made that gave him a national break. Vicious only owed them one thing, what he had agreed to, and that was to stay until September. At the same time, anyone who follows professional sports would have to be blind to recognize that what Vicious did is no different from what other leading stars in other sports have been doing for years. Maybe the precedent for renegotiating took longer to happen in wrestling, but it's already where everyone else was, and it's bound to trickle down to wrestling. So the idea is he's not happy, been happy for a while. He's flirting with the opportunity to leave. He thinks, well, not he thinks, he's had issues with guys who say that, you know, they're pushing this guy too long. I should be a top guy. Flair's so old, blah, blah, blah. He was pretty vocal about being unhappy. What do you remember about Sid in this era?
That he could be hard to deal with. You know, he had that amazing look that Vince embraced. Pardon me. And I think that I'm sure in somewhere along the way in those conversations that he was given the idea that he would be the WWE champion. And so, you know, I that was attracted to him because it's the top title in the business at that time. And with it comes excellent money, more money than he'd ever made. Look, Sid was in the business to make money. That's it.
Yeah.
He wasn't, he was living his lifelong, I don't think he was living his lifelong dream. And, you know, he wasn't one of those guys that came from the territories and was happy to make $200 a week if they had a belt to carry around. A lot of guys had that attitude. They're the champ. They got the belt. They get pictures made, and they're making $200 a week or something. But Sid was all about the money. And again, we've talked about this when talking about WCW, the communication between the decision makers, and that list of folks changed seemingly constantly, was never great. So, and you know, communication is the key. Wrestlers need more communication and constant positive feedback than any athlete I've ever been around. Because you mix athletics and showbiz, you got a very challenging scenario. So I think Sid was looking at it as my big break will come when I go to WWE or WWF, and I will eventually, sooner than later, become their champion. So he had visions of Hogan dancing in his head, the guy, the big, you know, and look, Sid started getting over as a babyface in WWE at one point in time. So, but we looked at him in Atlanta as the killer heel, but it just didn't work out. So, but I think a lot of that was just poor communication, Conrad, and the fact that that's what he wanted to do.
So as the story continues to evolve in the Observer, we went from he's finishing up at the pay-per-view to the latest on Sid Vicious is he's been pulled by WCW from all previously announced house show dates, except for the May 19th pay-per-view show. There's a lot of internal bitterness over this because he's being paid his $5,000 per week for sitting home for 1 month. You can't blame him for that because it was a decision made by the company, but it does seem like he's getting one heck of a nice reward for walking out on his contract. The explanation given to me was The company feared that Vicious, if he were to work his scheduled dates, would suddenly become injured and thus get out of doing a stretcher job at the pay-per-view. One WWF official wanted to bet me that there was no way he was getting on that stretcher anyway. I didn't take the bet, by the way. This is a different time where, you know, wins and losses matter even more than they do now. And certainly in the mind of the performers. Well, I can't lose because what if the Japanese magazines are blah, blah, blah. But here it does feel like people viewed the dreaded stretcher job as the ultimate humiliation. They're trying to devalue. They're trying to fuck me on the way out, Jim.
Yeah, that's what it was. God. Well, first of all, you got a delicate talent it's oversensitive because he's protective of his gimmick, so to speak. Did we really have to book him in a stretcher match? Why was that necessary? Did it sell any more pay-per-views? You know, was there going to be heavy blood and guts and all that stuff? No pun intended. Blood and guts. You got that? I worked that in.
Yeah, I did. I like that.
Okay. Thank you so much. You're so nice to me since the baby got here. But really, to get him to put somebody over on the way out was still the theory. But of course, we selected the most, you know, for Sid, humiliating way of doing it. Now you can say, well, it wasn't that humiliating. Well, it was to the talent. And it's not about who's on Twitter or who's on the internet. It's about getting the match in the ring, getting it done to the best of our ability, and not putting on a stinker. And that could have been easily addressed and cured by simply talking to the talent. It's your last date. You've been getting all your money. We've kept our word. We've done everything we said we were going to do for you. We're going to facilitate you leaving earlier than whatever, earlier than not. And here's what we need. We need you to put so-and-so over. And, but I don't know if that conversation ever took place. It's just business as usual. It wasn't business as usual. But when you got mostly wrestlers making decisions, you know, they don't have any problem, wrestlers in power, using that muscle to squeeze a talent.
Right.
Because quite frankly, if you look at everybody on the WCW roster at that time, Sid had the brightest future because he had Mr. McMahon loved that look. And when Vince loves a look that like Sid, which is very unusual to replicate, you know, everybody knows it's in the business. There are plans there. They're going to give Sid a chance to run with the ball. And then if he gets over, if he can stay healthy, he's going to be in, he's going to make a lot of money. And he's going to have great bookings, and great positionings on the pay-per-view, et cetera, et cetera. And he'll have the chance for somebody to say, it's live, pal. We're live, pal, Conrad. We're live, you know. So I thought it was just handled wrongly. You got to look at every match and the personalities involved in the match. At least that was my theory, and try to appease them as best you can if you could come to some sort of compromise. And that's not always been done in wrestling because, again, we want to flex our muscle. You know, we've got the pencil. You know, we got the book. So that's kind of how I looked at that deal. I don't think all this is Sid's fault whatsoever.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.